Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Random Thoughts. On this one, I recently saw a Twitter exchange where one person was mad at this creator named Eric July because he leveraged his success as a content creator to launch his new indie comic. This independent comic, for those who don't know, I may use some phrases like when I say big two, that's speaking of Marvel and DC. Now, there are plenty other comic companies, comic book companies besides those, but those are the big two, Marvel and DC. Like when people talk about characters, the only ones they know of are mostly those, and anyone else is from a smaller company. But the person's complaint was that they know of many indie creators who are much more talented and can barely move 10,000 comics. Here comes this guy who he admittedly doesn't like, and he's selling 5,000 for his first issue. Now, Eric replied that you should spend the energy, or sorry, he says that the energy that you spend hating that you use on hating other people, you should use for bettering yourself. Um, and that's also interesting, seeing as how Eric, Mr. July, he has a YouTube channel and I believe he's on maybe Twitch, but he talks about comics. He talks about various other things like in the comic book community. I think he even touches on some social issues. Now, I I've had a few thoughts about this when I first saw it. My first was that I'm not too fond of the implication that you shouldn't use your status to promote the work that you're doing. Eric spent years building his audience, and when he moved to a different medium, he brought along that audience to support his endeavors. It's the same reason why movie studios hire social media stars and even singers as opposed to regular actors for roles, hoping that the people who follow them in those other spaces will follow them to the theater. There's also a hint of gatekeeping. Since Eric didn't go through the same hoops as the creators that the commenter does like, then he should be privy to that level of success. I see this a lot with comedians, like Instagram comedians or TikTok. Anybody who does comedy who didn't start on stand up or who you see making skits. I've seen traditional older comedians don't view them as real comedians because they say they didn't come up the same way. Um, they have issues with them doing skits. And then they're like, okay, well, I've done these skits, I write these jokes, I do this. I want to go on stage and do it now. And then they may sell out or they may have issues. And I've seen them say, well, when they get on stage, they're going to crash and burn, or they're going to do whatever. And it's almost as if they're waiting or hoping to see it. But then at the same time, every comedian will note that everyone has bombed before. So just because they don't immediately start knocking it out, the fact that they're getting up there is part of the process, supposedly. And if they're able to have all these followers and then go on stage and then bring those followers along, why, you know, what does it matter to you? Um, I feel there should be a greater desire for the indie creators that he does like to build a larger audience that would actually spend the money to support them. As a friend of mine noticed, he didn't even tag the people he was referring to when he made his post. Like, he's saying, oh, I know all these independent creators who are better. And never once did he actually, tag any of them saying, I like this person, I like this person. Because Eric, reposted it. And so it would give, I don't know how big a platform the guy who, I think it's just a random commenter, but it would let them know that, hey, somebody is appreciative of the work or doing whatever. Um, they may not like being dragged into some random BS, but um, but anyway, that leads me to Eric stating that if people um use that energy, put that energy into supporting these creators, so they'll be more successful. Um, this is one of his statements that, or he said a few things. Okay, preface this. I personally do not enjoy his content. I've seen some of it, said I didn't like it, and so I've moved on. Um, but he's some is one of those things where he says some things that does make sense, that it's good in practice. Is like, well, no, there is a sliver of, not a sliver. There is some truth to what he says. The few things I've heard him say, but at the same time, it's ignoring a lot of other factors. Um, like you can only put so much energy into promoting something that you're not getting paid for, and not everyone can reach the masses that way. Um, Now, once again, I don't agree with the guy trying to shame Aaron because he was smart enough to promote himself. But back to saying, if you supported the people, and it's like, yeah, sometimes people can only support what they know about. If you don't know about something, then you can't show that support for it. You can't say, hey, rock with this, if you don't even know that something exists. I was talking to somebody yesterday. They was um, saying how they didn't like something, and I was like, "Well, you'll watch this show, you don't watch this." And it's like, "Wait a minute, this show is out." I'm like, "It's been out for like over a year," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I didn't know." Like, I don't know how they didn't know that it was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, I don't know how you didn't know that show was out. But yeah, for some people, I think that's just them with their head in the ground. But for a lot of these indie creators, they don't have the platform, they don't have the reach to and take the. I guess everyone has social media, but they don't have the reach or the promotion. They may not be good at promoting themselves. They may not be whatever. So they don't have it to where when they start something, um, it's not promoted. There's a character that I really enjoy, and I wish he was in more things. And then just randomly looking through some books, I see that the character is in a new ongoing book, and I'm like, I didn't see this promoted anywhere. I saw or heard no one talking about this. So yeah, you can say, well, if you put this much energy into supporting these creators, it's like, well, they could be promoting it or they could be supporting them as much as they can. However, at the same point, if there's not a bigger vehicle behind those creators, then you can only do so much as a consumer. I can watch a show as many times as I want to, but I'm only one person. I can tell people, but if other people don't, you know, can't hear me or, whatever, or they don't participate, then I'm just doing it by myself. You can support these people and they still not have a lot because you can only do so much. Um Also, to the standpoint that he's saying that, oh, well, he has 5,000 for his first issue. It reminds me of a thing I saw recently with talking about box office. People have this thing to where, well, so and so movie made this, but they dropped off. Movies always drop off after a certain point because that's just how it goes. People have already seen it, so they're not going to. It works the same way in comics. There can be when something relaunches or launches, and there's a lot of people buying it initially. After a while, that does start to peter off. So he may have 5,000, and I'm not wishing him, like I said, I don't agree with the guy, but I wish him success as a. It's one of those things like, well, he's black, so I wish him success as a fellow black man. I don't Just because I don't agree with you, don't mean I don't want you to succeed, uh, or at least wish your downfall. But So that 5,000 is not going to always stay there. And also, if you don't like him anyway, and I think that's more what it is. He doesn't like the guy, and he's mad that he's succeeding. But and let me get to that. The thing with Eric, um, I mentioned in one comment he said to think about people should take the time to better themselves instead of hating on him. And as I said, I thought that was funny because he spent his time up to now talking crap about other creators. I remember he made a video talking crap about Anthony Mackie because he said something about promoting, kind of getting a promotion when he moved up to Captain America. And he's like, "Oh, wait, that's how you can tell." He had something negative to say, to where I was just like, "Well, it's not that him. It's not that he views the mantle as being higher, but it's the position. He's moving up than where he was before. He has a TV show. He's getting his own solo movie. So he is moving up. His status is it's I don't know. It's one of those things where people talk about. Oh no, I'll get into that the other day. But my issue with the way that he put it, about the you should work on bettering yourself, because that is a thing. Once again, it's one of those things where he has a point. It's like, the energy that you put into not liking someone, the energy that you put into doing certain things, you can put that same energy into working on yourself. And like, my issue with the standpoint is that it gives the impression that you can only criticize art if you're working or doing, or if you're working or doing something. Um, Criticism equals hate, which seems to be the way that so many people take things nowadays. I criticize something. Oh, well, why are you hating? It's like I'm not hating. It's a critique of you put the art, you put the art out, you put whatever the content out, and I have my opinion on it. And it is funny when people say, well, everybody has an opinion nowadays, while giving opinion while they're giving an opinion on whatever they have. It's like, yes, everybody does have their people have always had their opinions. Now it's just that we're able to broadcast it to the world. And you don't have to take somebody's opinion. Um, and I don't always think there's an issue with critiquing somebody's opinion if it's based on, if you try to take your opinion as fact while starting from a base of misinformation, if that makes sense. It's like, we know this is how I feel, and that's just fact. It's just like, okay, when the basis of your quote unquote opinion is based off something that is inaccurate, that is wrong. So what you're saying is your opinion is basically what you're thinking is wrong. And I think I've talked about that before, but and I think I have a feeling. Oh, and his book has come out, and I'm wondering how he's going to take um, people having thoughts on the book. I've seen some people come out about his book, and it's kind of bothered me because, once again, I don't particularly like Eric, but at the same time, the way people have been coming at him and saying things, I feel like you guys are doing too much. And it was before the book even came out. It's like, so you don't even know the quality of the book, and you're saying all this stuff. And if you don't like him, if you don't like whatever, then stop talking about him. Stop giving that energy. Now that is one thing I agree with. Stop giving your energy to people that you don't like or don't agree with. If you feel like what they're saying is wrong, or what you're feeling, like, stop giving them that energy, especially like in tagging them in different things. And it's like, a lot of people wouldn't know who these people are if you hadn't brought them up. And Eric, being the smart business person he is, he's taking those people talking about him, and he's making it into other content. It's like, so you're shooting yourself in your foot. It's like the people who hate watch um, different shows, like She-Hulk. Well, it's getting a season two. Like, I have my feelings about that show. I'll probably talk about it later. but it's getting season two because people, it's like you can make all the videos you want bashing it, but you still watched it. They still got that viewership, so that's why they're going to keep going. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Basically, so I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't like gatekeeping saying that because you didn't do this the way that's traditionally being done, then you shouldn't have this success. Then you shouldn't be here. And at the same time, I also don't like the notion of, well, if you're not doing anything, then you can't criticize it. It's like, no, I can do two things at once, and I can also be perfectly fine with where I am and still say, I don't like this. This is not for me. This is not as good as whatever. But that's how I felt about it. That's just random thought. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to check out my podcast, Bold Expressions, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be found. Please like, share, subscribe, give it a thumbs up if you can. Even if you don't feel like listening to all of it, just a thumbs up would be great, you know, for my own self esteem. But anyway, thank you for listening. Bye. Love you.